In one of the previous videos, we are with you, successfully tried on the armor of the Crusader. Why not go further for 1,000 years? Before their appearance, the earth was trampled at least even more colorful Roman legions. What was the life of simple workers, servants of the emperor? No analysis, schedules and heavy historical data in. You are about to be a couple of minutes away. Salary and entertainment of the usual Roman. Let's say our guy's name is Legionnaire. Square is nothing surprising in that. At times such a thing really existed. The name and in Roman over the ego circles often. It is possible to meet if more precisely speaking about, after all, the nickname of Roman citizens. Very colorful. They consisted of 3 parts with us on nomina and cognomen a, if it's easier to talk about first and last name, and the nickname differs from modernity only. In the last point, if we have a third part of the full name is the patronymic. The Romans had a nickname and name for them. The nickname can be called real, with a unique name. For example, the Emperor Gaius Julius Caesar is whole. Puzzle Guy is a personal name. Julius is a surname and Caesar is a nickname, which scientists have not yet understood. Someone says that they were called that, Harry, and someone declares that Caesar was translated as divine or in. In ancient Rome there was no such salad, but not in. That's the point. The point is that the boy's name was given to him, the father, that is, the father of the Emperor Caesar. 2. Gaius was called Julius Caesar, to at least somehow distinguish the sons. Fathers used the nicknames of the elder, younger, or simply ordinal numbers of. Girls are still funnier at birth. The father's last name was. They most often received their last name from husband. For example, daughter and Gaius Julius Caesar got the name Julia, and after marriage to, after Pompey the Great, she became Julia, Pompey, and in the meantime, if there was a lot in the family, boys, some of them took the second or even a third nickname in the end. Towards the end existence of the Roman Empire in it were even people with 5 names at once, the famous Caligula. In fact, 2. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar, and not to be confused, ego with famous ancestors slaughtered. Historians use it in textbooks, only about things that are actually nicknames. The emperor. But our mercenary is simple. A hard worker means he has an ordinary name. Let's say the best sensei square is one of. Our ancestors had a legendary best man, sensei element fought against Hannibal. Even after 300 years we continue to wear his name, and it is unique. We are only nicknamed Square Origin, which is also shrouded in mystery. We love to eat outside too much. The 15th year of our Roman era. The empire is as strong as ever from the north, France, and to the middle of Africa she rules. All of this is due to the most powerful army, legionnaires, one of which is ours. The square of the word us could, not to call unless they are relatives, people I know personally used, surnames or nicknames, so more often, all our mercenaries nodded, sanctions or our father's square as well. The vast majority of parents, legionnaires, are an ordinary poor farmer. Therefore, 18 immediately hit like a square. He enlisted in the army, at least in fact. Mandatory conditions for those times were gorgeous. Not so long ago, the Emperor Gaius Julius Caesar raised the salary of legionnaires to 900p. A prince is about 9 gold coins an hour. Coins and 3 more are issued as a bonus for concluding a service contract. Historical data from the excavations of Pompeii. They say that in one day a person could easily to live on 2 sesterces is no wonder. After all, sisters could buy as many as 4 plates. Soup, if anyone is interested, is very rough. Exchange rate for modern money gives, for 1 sesterce, €2 for example. Liter of wine in the 15th year of our era. I could buy a square room for just €2, and if the guy wanted a mule he cost about 1,000. Not a good analogy with reality. Is it true that the service life was terrifying? As many as 20 years before our era. At times he was only 6, but a little later in life. Our square is closer to the end of the first. The century could be rattled, and for everything. 26. Good news. There was no fun life in the civilian life either. Special features for poor workers. Injected for 14 hours, so participation. Legionnaires is not so bad after all. At the end of the service, dembles were issued, 12,000 sesterces and sometimes more. Fat pieces of land. There are many stories about fraud and non-payment. An assignment to a former legionnaire. Lifeless territory as a reward for service. But our square is a good mercenary, and unhappiness will bypass the ego. Yes, it will be in 20 years. By the way, legendary 4 months of preparation ahead. Recruits in Venice's treatise on the military. It is written in a banal but true way. Phrase the fact that the Romans managed to conquer the whole world can be explained only by their military training in the camp. He speaks with discipline and military practice. Vibe C, and he is absolutely right. Unlike OT, later formation of legionnaires, there were machines after the exhausting ones of training. Our square learned in 5 hours passes 35 kilometers fast. Step with 20 kilograms of equipment A. Along the way, he learned a complex system of commands, presented by mountains and banners. Roman generals believed that preservation, the formation, is the main key to victory. Taking into account the results of Rome's war with them are difficult, argues during the course of the young fighter. The whole construction was worked out by a turtle. Bark wedge battle on wooden swords. Archery. The square will leave this place perfectly, by a killing machine, and that is important. Capable of everything. Not every modern army can boast of such care of the servants. After all, legionnaires were even taught to swim in equipment so as not to accidentally drown. Cross the river. Remember how we are in the video with the Crusaders. Discussed dysentery and unsanitary inn. Who carried the lives of thousands of soldiers for 1,000 years before the Roman Crusades. Legions of such problems did not exist. The health of the legionnaires stood first place in any product that falls to. Our little square was tested by everyone. Possible services, even water, carefully studied by officers, so that the soldiers do not get poisoned even if suddenly something went wrong or was received in battle. Wounds in ancient Rome for the first time in modern history existed. Special parts in each region. There were doctors and infirmaries were built, and the sick soldier received the necessary. The inscription has reached modernity. The order of one of the commanders of the legion, and she says that when the city is stormed, there is a camp. It is worth breaking for several kilometers, and so that the wounded do not hear the noise of the battle, and calmly gain strength. Attention and another important detail of combat. The spirit of no common dining rooms and sensations. Slavery. Roman legionnaires were divided into century and what is more important is the contubernium, and this, a small platoon of 8 people, carried all the ideas of the Romans, was such that this 8 was doing everything together, starting with food and ending with it, gatherings for the night and going to war. The guys fought primarily not for emperor and for his contubernium for friends and comrades, and this was not only not forbidden but also the priority of the soldier was encouraged from above. The life of comrades stood first, then the prestige of the century, and from 100 people, only then the status of the legion from 60. Century. The Romans revolutionized the military because they went to the battlefield side by side, not strangers to each other, but comrades, living together on many graves for years. At that time there is a mention of the word brother, demonstrating how far they have gone. Sviatsi soldiers, however, the similarity of there were modern armies, for they were always in legions. During the war, our square could last an entire hour, serves as a policeman somewhere, or the builder has known cases when legionnaires collected taxes or worked legion guards in peacetime, gathered once an hour for Natalie's Aquila. The so-called birthday was held, feast, demonstrative teachings, and various celebrations to support the military, a spirit that, although it was not at its height, always allowed Rome to conquer half of the world. But even in campaigns, the legionnaires had something to do, because gambling flourished like never before. The guys played heads and tails, which was called a head or a ship, and even in a complicated analog, the game was called crossword puzzle, millwheel, and for victory on the field, it was necessary to place 3 chips in a row. The most adventurous invented a prototype, modern narts, under the name tabula v, which lost entire fortunes. It got to the point that it would be banned. At the legislative level, the soldiers left, found ways to escape remains. Only hope that our square is not prone to alcoholism. The average for the empire is only 60%. Legionnaires live to retire, but not. It should be remembered that the figure is significantly spoiled. Front zones where legions could lose up to half a soldier per day is not worth it. Pay attention to the second one, prejudice. Even in textbooks it is difficult to find the phrase that life expectancy in ancient times was 30 years old and was considered 60 years old. Something incredible. This is a lie, and a lie that is grosser because of that. Infant mortality rate. She invented antibiotics, decreased rapidly, which gave such a result. High average life expectancy. After all, if you take an 80-year-old man and the 1-year-old child of the deceased disease, they lived an average of 40 years. Every year, that's exactly how low ones turn out. Figures of life of ancient times. But still, scientists clearly declare that if a person is, in ancient times, lived to adulthood, ego chances to live a happy old age were not much smaller than ours. So that's it. If the old square survived 20 years, army, he had a chance to 40, get a beautiful wife and relax, live on a farm donated by the state, or purchased for accumulated and vacation. You can't name the means for a legionnaire's life. Easy, but can someone name it? We can say the same with confidence. For sure, in ancient Rome, soldiers were not counted. Work was constantly being done for garbage. Over disciplines, combat skills, and Physical condition was controlled, the quality of the food, and there were nurses nearby, ready to help soldiers even on the battlefield. Of course, everything happened sometimes. Entire centuries deserted in some places, same-sex relationships flourished, and some legionnaires went crazy. This is rather an exception to the rule, for at least at the peak of power, the Roman army was a comparable machine. Organizations of modern states and our square thought that it was a good life. Lives and fights for something great. More than that, legal rest loomed ahead, and good bonuses from the state if. Do you want to learn more about the ancient world? Save yourself a like and write about it in comments until new meetings. Friends.